wireless mic went down, so we're going to swap to this. Sounds good. We have backups. I feel like a lounge act now. I felt so much better when I had a wireless mic. Now I feel like a stand media. Don't anybody Will Smith me. Don't anybody Will Smith me now. Making sure. All right, test 1, 2, 3. Let's go. Test. Test 1, 2, 3. Test. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. Omero, can you hear me back there, Omero? Do we have a bit of an echo? We're good? Okay, good. Thank you. All right, can you open all of the council members' mics and let them test one by one, please?
Testing. Testing. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Okay, can you open management's mics and let them test? Council members have tested? Kevin?
Test.
Kevin?
Test. Got me?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Hale? She got a live mic. Mr. Arredondo? Mr. Valdez, City Secretary?
Yes, smell.
Okay, very good. Very good, very good. Okay, are we ready? Are we live? Everything's good? Okay, Mr. Mayor, you are going to lead first since you are opening the meeting.
p.m. We're here at the Joe A. Guerra Laredo Public Library. This is the City of Laredo Workshop, and the library is situated at 1120 East Calton Road. And of course, the date is March 31st, 2022. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moment of silence for any intention you may have. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Roll call, please, Mr. City Secretary.
Mayor Pete Stein.
Present.
Councilmember Rudy Gonzalez Jr. Mayor Pro Tem Vidal Rodriguez.
Present.
Councilmember Mercurio Martinez. Here. Councilmember Alberto Torres Jr.
Present.
Councilmember Ruben Gutierrez Jr.
Present.
Councilmember Dr. Marta Martinez. Councilmember Vanessa Perez.
Present.
Councilmember Alisa Cigarroa. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Mr. City Secretary. Moving on to public comments. Do we have any? I don't have any cards here in front of me, but I'm told we do have some that were submitted and will be read.
Thank you, Mayor. Noraida Negron, Communication Administrator for the City of Laredo. I do have 2 public comments. The first one is from Victor Gomez. My name is Victor Gomez. For the record, I'm exercising my First Amendment right. I ask to please read my comments slowly and clearly. I have commented on our current male assistant city manager in the past. I have not said anything untruthful nor insulting in his performance as a former water utilities director. The big question is why we cannot mention his name. In the past, when I said that Robert Eads was not suitable to lead as our city manager, he took the criticism like a public servant should. Constructive criticism is part of growing up. Our current city leadership has censored public comments submitted by Mary Lou Garza. Our current interim city manager referred to Laredo citizens as the governed at a recent KGNS interview. As a Laredo citizen, I find his choice of words very insulting. This sounds like we, the people, are subjects of a kingdom. We are constituents that pay salaries for you or public servants. I have spoken to our honorable mayor this week about this matter, and he agrees that this needs to be cleared up. I am making a formal request to place this censorship issue as an agenda item on our next city council meeting. It is the right of a citizen to make such a request and one that must be granted. Thank you very much, and I will see you very soon. The next comment is from Ms. Mary Lugarza. Public information officers should slow down while reading our comments and not rushed. Council should be present and pay attention while comments are read and not walk out or be in their phones. That's disrespectful. Comments should not be censored based on uncomfortable facts that are public information. For example, having a city interim manager making a decision to not read a citizen's comment because the comment attacked the personality of a city's water utilities director making $170,000, being moved to a position to an assistant city manager making $190,000. I fail to see how stating facts has anything to do with personalities. Citizens should not be addressed as the governed. I personally want to be led and directed by its elected officials, not governed by the government. And finally, with salaries ranging from $50,000 to $200,000, the citizens must under poverty level should not have to foot the bill for council steak dinners from some of the most prominent restaurants here in Laredo. Those are all the comments.
Thank you very much, and thank you for those comments. Moving on to staff reports, and that's the discussion with possible action on the integrated water master plan and including the proposed funding plan and any other matters incident there too. This has been an ongoing workshop. This is our third workshop, is it? Second? Third and final? Okay. And it's really up to this council, I presume. Yes, Mr. Gene Belmontes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As part of the Lockwood Anderson Unum team, along with Ardura, who is also in the room tonight to speak to some of the projects that are ongoing, I'd like to introduce our team that's going to be speaking tonight. We've got Tom Ray with Lockwood Anderson Unum and Russell Ford. And then with Ardura, we have Ignacio Hinojosa, who's here as well. And so some of the slides you're about to see, we've already seen before, and I just need to do one technology issue real quick, and that is my microphone. These are both live. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. There we go. So I'm going to return this one for public comments, and then I'm going to grab one for me. Oh, thank you, Mr. Selman. And one for Tom Ray. There we go, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we can have the workshop master plan presentation. Now, this is our third presentation on this workshop, and we will be covering some items you have not seen yet or maybe saw during some of the town halls, and then ultimately go back into the CIP that we've talked about for the last two workshops, and then roll into the 36-inch line. We'll have that as well, some comments and some in here, so if we can help with that. And this screen here is live. This is what the public will see. This is also live, but it's coming through our restream system, so there may be a little lag here, but there won't be one here, so you'll be able to see the presentation. The committee is seeing this presentation that you have before you. Have we passed that out to everyone here? No, you have the Ardura one. I don't think you have the one for LAN. Aha. So let's get those in your hands. Thank you. So, about that. Councilmember. Councilmember.
Thank you.
Councilmember. Councilmember.
Thank you.
Councilmember. Councilmember. And then for the staff, if we need more, we have 25 more copies in the back there. Oh, thank you. So the format's a little different this time in that this is a workshop. We're going to go through the presentation. If at all possible, let's hold as many questions as possible to the end. You've got plenty of room to write notes. There are some new items here, so those may create some questions, but we hope we're able to answer those for you in the very last sections. Okay? Councilmember.
For the record, we have Alisa Cigarroa with us. Thank you.
Okay, so let's move to the next slide, please. We're going to start with impact fees now. What are impact fees? Tom, you want to come on, jump in here and give me a hand with impact fees? Tom Ray with Lockwood Andrews and Newman.
Is that Mike?
Yours is live.
Tom Ray, Lockwood Andrews and Newman. Appreciate being here. Impact fees, if we go to the next slide, let's see it. There we go.
You can hop on the side here.
It's a mechanism allowed by the government code to recover the cost of infrastructure, and importantly, that's infrastructure for future development, not current development, future development. It's a one-time fee. It's, again, if you want the details on it, it's Chapter 395 of the Texas Water Code. One of the important things is it is not a tax. It is not a tax. It's a reimbursement that takes place when a developer provides impact fees to the city for future development. It does not, this one's important too, it does not increase your utility bill, the ratepayer's cost. So it's a means of, as the city grows, using impact fees to pay for that growth, okay? They're based on land use assumptions, expected population growth, corresponding improvements that are needed, expenditures necessary to serve that growth. And a lot of that type of information you're going to hear tonight that's been developed in the Water Master Plan. Next slide. You want me to go on?
Oh, go on. You've got
Any
this.
questions on what it is? Go back one. I'm sorry. Yes. I wanted to make sure that it was understood that it's not a tax and it doesn't increase the ratepayer's utility bill. Okay? That's placed on the developer. Okay. Impact fees, there's a process. It's in the government code. We have to follow it. And these are the three components of that process. Land use assumptions, a look into the future as to how the city of Laredo is going to grow. Capital improvement plans, that's what we're talking about tonight, the latest in the series. And then setting the actual fee based on the regulation. Go ahead. There we go. The process is reviewed and managed by an impact fee advisory committee. Typically, it has the planning and zoning membership on there, as well as ad hoc members that could come from building associations, developers, etc. So, importantly for the council, you can put into place, starting today, you can start putting into place this advisory committee and be ready to undertake taking a close look at impact fees and whether those are appropriate for Laredo. Okay? This is and I'll probably get Gene to help me on this one. These are the fees that are currently being paid. And
through the annexation process and or the consumer demand, which is the first section you see. Ratepayer fees, that's your meter connection. You go buy a new house, get a new apartment, you go set up a water meter account, the City of Laredo Utilities, you're going to pay a meter connection fee, and that covers meter capital and construction costs, your O&M, and then a water demand fee that is currently being charged based on a meter size, right? And that is for, I'm sorry, a little close to your mic.
Oh, yeah.
And so that one allows the City of Laredo to continue to buy water rights for future use, right? That's typically, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Garcia, it's a dollar on your bill. So every consumer pays $1 to buy additional water rights, and I think you do have an item coming up soon to buy additional water rights.
just to clarify,
Yes. Size of the meter, that's correct, based on size of the meter. The developer, when he comes into the city to begin the development process of his land, and he is asking you to annex it or develop it, they're going to pay certain fees at that point. In the annexation process, it applies to all developments outside of the city limits, that are not currently in the incorporated city of Laredo. It includes development-specific annexation agreement fees and can range from water, wastewater, and other fees that are charged at that time. And then water availability fees, again, that is specifically for water demand for that development. Those also go to fund purchase additional rights on the Rio Grande. Okay? Next slide, please. If you decide to create an impact fee, these will supersede your development fees. Some of these will go away, some will not. There are some fees in there during the annexation process that don't go away, but that is something that you all decide through the state statute on what you can do. You decide what those impact fees are. So based on land use, based on your capital improvements, and then state regulation, you would create a fee for development when you annex people's property voluntarily, right? If someone comes to you and says, I want to be part of the city of Laredo, they would have a fee to pay.
I'd also mention, Gene, that engineers come in and look and project not only population growth and industrial growth, those types of things, but also identify the infrastructure that is dedicated to future development, and also any existing infrastructure that is to be used by future development is also eligible. So you have to have an engineer specialized in looking at that and coming up with the impact of new growth on the existing system.
Dr. Martha Martinez is not with us. Dr. Martha Martinez is not with us. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Cigarro as well.
Yeah, sure. Yes, go ahead.
Welcome, council members. So again, as the city develops and those properties are annexed, they begin to have an impact on the core system. The developer is putting in water lines, sewer lines. They are putting other infrastructure into that development. However, all those new homes, all those new warehouses have an impact on your core system. The amount of water you can treat, the amount of wastewater you can treat, conveyance lines, all those things, that infrastructure is impacted by that new growth, right? And so that growth has to pay for the capacities that you need to continue to treat all the new growth and your existing constituents. Okay? Next slide.
This is a slide that is kind of busy, but this is the process that's in place. Every city in Texas follows this. It's Chapter 195. But it starts with developing the land use, doing those three things I mentioned earlier. You have an advisory committee. First, a public hearing that is required, and then an advisory committee that closely looks at the requirements and what, in order to make recommendations to the city and the city council on the need for impact fee, what the future impact is in terms of dollars and infrastructure. Then it moves on to another hearing after that, and finally it comes to the and is culminated in a city ordinance with 30 days more of public hearing on the ordinance itself. So that's kind of how the process works.
The one other item to consider is that the advisory committee, once you've decided what those assumptions are and your CIPs are adopted, that committee is going to have 30 days to come back to you, limited to 30 days. And then you have the public hearings once that's happened, and then you come into the adoption. And adoption, you have public hearings just like you do at city council. You can waive the final readings and so on and so forth, as you typically would do. There is another item that's not on this slide, but very important, that once you adopt impact fees, you must revisit those every 5 years in the same fashion.
In the same process.
That is, so basically updating your CIPs, both not just your water and wastewater CIPs, but all your other CIPs, all your other capital improvements that are coming out of general fund and other enterprise funds. They would be visited here. All the entire CIPs looked at through here. Okay. Okay, so the next subject we wanted to cover with you all tonight that we've talked about before, you've seen it at the town halls. I know Councilman Vanessa Perez had attended a couple of the town halls, and she saw that, asked a couple questions. We wanted to come back and answer those. Councilman Martinez had been at some of the town halls with the mayor. We want to make sure that we come back to this particular section. Yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Selman.
You want to ask the council if they got any questions on impact fees before you start
Do you want to do that? Okay. Do you have any questions on impact fees?
Just go ahead, Doctor, and I've got a follow-up.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
So
No, go ahead, Doctor.
the first question is, in what you've looked at right now in your impact fees, those would be adopting a new way of doing things, or would it, because I know right now they pay for a water availability fee, they pay for like 3 different fees before they're
Could you get closer to the mic, please, Doctor?
There you go.
So again,
Give me a little
Yeah,
more.
would you raise the mic, please, for the doctor?
Yes, thank you.
test. Hello? Do I need to talk louder?
No, that's fine.
No, you're fine. Well, in fact, we're getting a little bit of an echo, so.
Okay, so the question that I had is in reference to impact fees and how you looked at them. These impact fees that you're working on, you're talking about, would these replace the current system that we have?
If you can go back to the slide presentation and go back a slide. Here we go. So currently, council member, as you see, when you do your public water services, those fees are paid by the developer, include water availability, your living unit equivalents for wastewater, water availability fees for future funding of Rio Grande water rights. All those get superseded by an impact fee.
So those would...
But you have a decision to make on which ones those are, because there are still some that you could add outside of that in an annexation agreement. An application fee, for example, you could decide what that fee is. Mr. City Manager, correct me if I'm wrong. You could come in the annexation process, outside of impact fees, say, if you're going to develop in the city of Laredo, here's the very first cost you have to meet, which is this application fee, and then there may be some other items you want to consider. Remember, in annexation, you have other things other than water and wastewater. You have police, fire, roads, lights, garbage pickup. All those things are impacted
And that's
this new development.
the
And
second part.
the more linear you go, the further out of town you go to bring that piece of land into your incorporated city, the more expense you have. And imagine, as it starts up, you all have a cost in servicing that may not even break even or maybe even lose your money. For example, 750 unit project right at the edge of the ETJ comes in. It's 20 miles from the solid waste, and you've got to run a truck all the way over there to pick up solid waste. So you might not make any money picking up solid waste there.
And so these impact fees, I guess the second part is, I know we're looking at water right now, but it would be in the development process, these impact fees would be all-encompassing, so we would look at some of the other utilities available, or the other enterprise funds, or this is specific to just water and waste?
What we're currently addressing is specific to water. However, impact fees are governed by the state through the Local Government Code 395. So whatever is allowed within that government code is what you would bring into an impact fee.
Other services are and can have an impact fee or be included in the impact fee that's charged to the developer.
So I'll just say that from a development standpoint, right? So we hear a lot of developers tell us that the process is convoluted and complicated, and when they hear this, they're always concerned about, is it going to be more convoluted and more complicated? And I'm just trying to spell out that this should be simpler, because this should supersede everything that they've done previously, right? And the second part is that by creating these impact fees, we're going to take some of the burden off of the ratepayers, correct?
Yes, potentially. Going back to the slide, if you may. For example, go back. There we go. This particular fee right here, which everyone is paying for right now, albeit nominal, could go away depending on how you structure your impact fees, potentially. But the reality is you're going to need water from here to the cows come home. So you're going to need to buy water, whether the developers help you, whether the community helps you, or it's a joint process where everybody kind of chips in. But obviously, you do want to unburden your ratepayers from some of that.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Yes, I have a question here.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, two primarily. One on the water demand or that fee that we usually, that dollar that we're currently charging, for the Rio Grande. That could also be, attributed to a secondary water source, correct? If council would allow it.
It's policymakers.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we could add another dollar for a secondary water source.
If the council so chose.
Okay.
That is correct.
No, that's fine, and that answers it. Yeah, the other one is on future development. Generally speaking, the city would have to front these costs, correct, and then be reimbursed as the developers come in to develop. How is the sequence of the monies?
There's two ways, but, well, let me see if I can get the first one. The developer typically pays the impact fee at final plat. So when they've got, their plat done, then,
But is the infrastructure already in place?
No.
Yes and no. That's why it says
Yes,
it's a bifurcated
Yeah.
answer. The developer's already putting in water lines, wastewater lines, fire hydrants
Yeah, within their
within their
subdivision.
development.
Yeah.
What that new development does to your core systems is what the impact fees should be covering. That is, if you build 2-3 subdivisions that all of a sudden require you to upsize your wastewater treatment plant or your line capacities, your storage tanks, that is what those impact fees could be used for, provided that subdivision or that area is impacting those core systems and those new infrastructure projects are made to serve those new areas.
Okay.
A little more restricted than annexation fees. The way you bring them in now, they basically go into a general fund within utilities and can be used as needed. Under the impact fees, because it's governed by local government code, they would be restricted to those areas that are creating the impact to your core systems.
So in essence, and I think I've heard this before, the city could front, and I think we've fronted monies before, but with the assurance that the developers will develop and the city would get reimbursed through these impact fees.
Mr. Mayor, if I understand your question correctly, you're talking more about reimbursement contracts.
Correct.
For example, if you've got a subdivision that's some far out, you all make the agreement that you're going to build a water line that goes beyond other landowners to that landowner, and anybody who taps into that at some point reimburses the city for that cost,
Okay.
including the developer.
Was it Bartlett? Okay.
Bartlett, for example, a very good example of that.
Right. Okay, that's it as far as as far as my question.
Mr. Mayor, any other questions from
Anyone
anyone?
else? Yes.
Are we talking about?
Yeah, would you get closer to the mic?
Are we talking about impact fees anymore for the rest of the presentation, or is this going to?
This is kind of the education. We wanted to just kind of let you know what an impact fee was, what it wasn't, and then how to go through that process of creating an impact fee if you so choose to do so.
And you're saying that there's a process, right? And so
That is correct.
Step one would be the impact fee advisory committee?
No, that's, go to the next slide, please. The first one is you've got to develop your CIPs, right? And your land use assumptions, and then propose an impact fee based on what you believe the CIP, looking out into the future, is going to create in terms of impacts to the city.
And who does that, step one?
Step one, staff and consultants, it's a combination of folks, right? The planning and zoning, for example, is receiving master plans on a regular basis. They are not yet platted, but you have an idea what's coming in the future, and you begin to make those assumptions based on that. We are making assumptions in our capital improvement plan to you all as part of our water and wastewater master plans, and those assumptions are based on what we've received in our research from staff, developers, and others to come back to you and say, we believe these are your high priority projects.
So the impact fee advisory committee can't work towards that and making this be,
Yes,
the process-
they can, but not
ongoing?
until you do this, and then you can appoint. And then you have 30 days, right? Now, whether or not you can get started beforehand, I don't know. That's a question that we'd have to research on whether or not you could appoint that tonight, not adopt any of these items until September, October during your budget process when you adopt your CIP, you make some of these assumptions, and then you come back and do the public hearing, and then you trigger that. So can you do that beforehand? I don't know. That's a good question.
I think we should figure out, I guess, let the consultants work
Yeah.
and figure out our needs going forward, because that may change how much impact fee we're going to do, or whether we're going to need them, or
Yes.
whether we just decide to do it as just a change to make things easier. But ultimately, I think we need to go through the processes. I mean, as you're laying it out, it makes sense to me right now.
And again, who you appoint to your advisory board should be members of your planning and zoning commission staff are going to be part of that, members of the community, stakeholders, developers, all those folks need to be involved in that process as you make your appointments.
But I was going to suggest that the council members too, if, we can fine tune this at city council, we can put agenda items if you're specifically wanting, something more refined as far as, the procedure or the methods.
Well, I'd like for us to move in this direction. I don't know if we need a motion for this right now.
We're going to, at the tail end of the presentation, we're going to give you all some recommendations on some things you can bring back to City Council. We didn't necessarily want you all to take action tonight. We weren't sure, whether that's something we wanted to move forward on. Although you can, because it's posted that way. There are some recommendations we want to make to you all to bring back as motions or resolutions at council, at your next council
For
meeting.
clarification purposes, this does not apply to inner city, correct? We're talking future development? Or
Well-
could it apply to inner city? It could
If there's new development within the city, certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one other point I wanted to make, Gene, is that the impact fee that's adopted is up to the council. I mean, you don't have to, the engineers will calculate a impact fee according to 395 that the city has the option to charge, to adopt. But you don't have to adopt the maximum impact fee. You have quite a bit of flexibility, and I think we could work through, get some more detail and explain that
I
later.
was going to suggest to council, if you want something more specific, bring an agenda item.
And Mayor, just to answer your question a little bit, so as we're developing and we're changing, we know that going forward, if we go out too far, all of a sudden our expenses go up. And so we're trying to encourage infill development. However, at the same time, we're also trying to create some verticality. And whenever you have a higher density, that also impacts your core infrastructure, simply because there's more density, and so there's more water that's being used, there's more sewer that's being used, and so even though it doesn't make a lot, it's not common sense, if you will, to say that, hey, the infrastructure is already in place, so we shouldn't have to adapt it. We do have to adapt it because the use increases, the density increases, and so we may have to do that also for some of the development in older parts of the city that are currently getting high rises or having higher densities.
Okay, I think we can go to the secondary source.
One more item that I think it's important based on what the councilman is saying, and Mr. City Manager, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you can use your impact fees when you're talking about infield development as an incentive to develop infield. Obviously, there are some things that are not going to create as a significant impact as if you were 20 miles out or 5 miles out. Sure, right. Okay, so maybe that's something that you all could focus on.
Okay. Yeah, let's move on to a supplemental.
Supplemental secondary water. Now, we always talk about that in terms of secondary water. I think you've heard that term more than you have supplemental, but the idea is to bring additional water source to you. We've always looked at the issue of diversity, bringing water from a different source other than Rio Grande, and then also an emergency water supplies. And Tom has done extensive work on this here, and he's going to lead this discussion. I know that Mayor, this is one of the items that you really wanted us to focus on, and the team has really taken a hard look at some of the things that are available to us. And again, we'll make some recommendations as well at some point.
Very good. Thank you, Gene. This is the task, the outline, the bullets that we looked at to begin with looking at Laredo's future additional water demand. And we'll show you a chart in just a minute that shows how rapidly, really, the city of Laredo is expected to grow. And so our first task was to determine what is the supplemental amount of water, supplemental to the amount of existing water that the city has. What is that amount that you need for the future, for 2070? Then we wanted to determine an amount. So supplemental water relates to future water supply based on growth. Okay? The emergency supply recognizes the fact that Laredo gets its water from one source. the Rio Grande. And what can Laredo do to be prepared if there's an outage of some sort, whether there's a chemical contaminant, something of that sort, whether there's even a climatic change? What amount of water can the city look for to meet that need, at least for an interim period of time, or to be able to meet that need on an emergency basis for a period of time? In looking at that, I focused quite a bit on the previous groundwater projects that have been done for the city, have been looked at by various consultants, including some Region M work, the regional planning process. One of the ones that we looked at in quite a bit of detail was Lake Casablanca. There's a lake here in Laredo within the city limits. Having a water supply that close to the water treatment plant would be a great thing, but as we'll see, that is not feasible for a number of reasons. And I looked at alternatives to Lake Casablanca and explored other types of solutions for emergency and supplemental water supply. Okay, next slide. All right, this shows the amount of demand, the amount of water supply that the city needs for the future, for its future growth. This is the water demand over time developed by Region M. And you can see it gets significant in the year 2070, also showing the population associated with that water demand. Out in 2070, it's 613,000. It shows here is the amount of water that water supply that the city currently has available in the Rio Grande. And it's significant. It's sufficient to meet the city's demands out past 2040, just past 2040, according to these projections. So that the city has done a good job of accumulating existing water supply. But around 2040, in that time frame, this projects you're going to need to add additional supplemental supply. Another 22,000 acre feet is going to be needed to add to your current supply to get out to 2070. Okay? Does that make sense? That's when I talk about supplemental supply, that's what I'm talking about. So two things here. The city's done a good job on developing its water supply, has a good surplus, and you have the opportunity, and city's continuing to acquire water rights on the Rio Grande. So that process justifies that effort. Next slide. This one's a little more complicated, gets into the actual numbers. This is the water demand from the regional plan, Region M, and you can see that there's the 81,000, and we're right here just over the 58,000, just over the 2040 marker. This shows, this bottom line shows if you take the demand, or you take the supply available and subtract the demand, how much surplus or how much negative are you in terms of water supply? And that line crosses again in 2040, early 2040. But until then, you're carrying 18,000. There's just over 1,000 acre feet available even in 2040, 41. And then it starts going negative, and that shows you the need starting in 2050 time frame and going out to 2070. And these are all in acre feet per year. And that's a term that's used in water supply because it's a large quantity of water. That unit represents 325,800 gallons, so it's a large amount. Yes, sir.
I know that this takes into consideration the population growth, et cetera, but does it also take into consideration the lack of waterfall that we're having, especially this year, and the diminishing amount of water fluid coming through here?
Coming down the Rio Grande?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I think it takes it, and Ria may need to help me on this, in terms of Region M. How did they handle that? Did they impose any sort of restrictions on the supply available based on climate change or any of those types of factors?
Mayor, Councilman Riazumia, this is based on extreme drought condition.
That's pretty simple.
Yes, a follow-up to
Because
that.
we projected based on the severe condition. So if we have more rainfall, yeah, you have more available water.
But keep in mind too, toward 2050, 60, and 70, obviously, other communities on both sides of the river are growing, expanding.
Right.
And agriculture is also expanding as well. So, have we calculated that in this model? We can't just look at it ourselves. It's got to.
Only Laredo, it's got the entire region.
The entire river. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, to answer your question, this projection comes from the Region M Planning Group. So as part of the Texas Water Development Board, they have a region planning group that includes multiple counties. Your Assistant City Manager, Ria Zulmia, sits on that board, as does a few other folks from Laredo. Nick Benavides, Tomas Rodriguez was sitting on that board at one time. So this is a regional planning tool that looks into this issue. So yes, again, there's also, Mexico, and what do you do with that? And there are treaty rights and things of that nature that are considered as part of all of your planning.
So this model here does incorporate all of that?
I would say yes, confidently.
Okay.
Because if you go through the Region M, you will see every county water district has the demand, and that's how it's projected.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next slide. Rio Grande's supply is up to 55 million gallons per day currently, and the treatment capacity is also significant for the city. At the Jefferson plant, it's up to 65 million gallons a day, and El Pico at 20 million gallons a day currently. So, okay. And when I looked at water needs, we looked at the two goals, the supplemental water needed, long-term future growth we just looked at. Also the emergency amount of water that could be used if there's some interruption in the Rio Grande. And we actually set, this is not a hard number, this is a target, to try to get as much as 33.5 million gallons a day available to the city should the Rio Grande supply be cut off. Okay. Next slide. Okay. So where did we look? This slide shows the primary alternatives that we looked at, starting with Lake Casablanca and looking at additional water rights, which are continue to be underway. We looked at the Laredo Weir as a potential. We looked at aquifer storage and recovery, actually based that on a report that was done in the late 90s. In those conditions, checking with the groundwater hydrologist, those conditions haven't changed. So we used that report in our finding zone. That's ASR, aquifer storage and recovery. And then water reuse, and there's an excellent water reuse project available to the city. It's in the Region M plan again. It's very well thought out. And finally, groundwater supplies. And groundwater supplies are a new source of supply for the city that needs serious consideration for both the supplemental as well as the emergency supply targets. Okay. well, here, they're on this slide too. These are the groundwater target, or groundwater areas that I looked at in terms of providing additional supply, supplemental or emergency supply. And we started down in Webb County and looked at 2 locations in Webb County, and this legacy water supply, which is the closest to Laredo. We'll report more on that just on another slide in just a minute. Davenport Ranch is here on the Dimmitt County line, a little further from Laredo. So the conveyance costs to get that groundwater into the Laredo system is going to be more. And then you go into Dimmitt County. Dimmitt County's a little further away, a little better water, a little more water. And then 2 way out here, 150 miles from Laredo, in Kinney and Valverde counties. Tremendous amount of water up there, but those types of projects, the ones that require significant conveyance, only make sense if Laredo is part of a regional project where you have others involved, Eagle Pass and others. Excuse me. All right, let's focus on the Webb County groundwater. Again, we were looking at Walker Ranch, the legacy water supply as it's called now, and Davenport Ranch. Both would meet, importantly, based on, I need to stop and turn back. Both of these we have preliminary information, and the folks that are working on it, developing these projects, are getting more data, both on the quantity and the quality. So we've got Davenport and Legacy both meet the goals. The closest to Laredo would have the least conveyance cost, and that translates into less cost for the city in terms of dollars per 1,000 gallons delivered. The water quality is a big question at this point. Next slide. If we look at the Legacy, the Walker Ranch, they did water tests, pump tests on their groundwater 2 months ago, 3 months ago maybe, and it came out, the water quality came out very poor, and high in TDS, high in iron, and overall not acceptable. And at that point, 2 or 3 months ago, we were going to recommend that we just drop that one off, that it's poor quality, it's not going to work.
Is that because of the oil and gas permeating the groundwater or something?
No, that could be part of it, but, and I'm not a groundwater hydrologist by any means, but to my understanding that there's areas of groundwater as you get closer to Laredo in Webb County that have pockets of high TDS, iron and other constituents.
That's just part of the sands themselves.
It is.
Councilmember, Mr. Mayor, if I may, you also have a well right now at Santa Isabel, for example. The water is very, very hot coming out of the ground. It does have high dissolved solids in there, TDS. And again, it does not have the kind of quality you would need for a municipal water well.
Okay, so the Legacy is out, or is it in?
Well, the rest of the story is, Mayor, that I was contacted last week by the engineer that's working on this project. They are dissatisfied with the first pump test, and they have a number of reasons why. And they have scheduled another pump test where they look at both the production as well as the quality of the water. That's scheduled for April the 11th. So we'll see how those turn out, and based on that, we can make a recommendation one way or the other on Legacy. Okay.
So moving on to the Davenport Ranch.
Okay. Should be the next slide. Go ahead.
Go back
up. Okay, these are initial results. We're waiting on more refinement, more certified information, but it looks to be in pretty good shape. They did a production based on a discharge to a pond there on the property, and anecdotally they are saying it was excellent quality. Well, we can't take that. We've got to have the lab reports and all those things. So we're working on that part of it. But Davenport has some advantages. Again, it's within Webb County and closer to the city of Laredo. All right. This just goes back to looking at these other main areas. We know Dimmitt County's been looked at a lot. It has a good water quality, has good supply. Kinney County and Valverde County, the thing to remember getting it to Laredo will be expensive. Okay.
Yes, sir. Go
Yes,
ahead,
sir.
please.
Thank you. You said that regionally it might make sense to include other counties and other cities along that corridor.
Possibly.
Is there a state, I guess, organization or this council that you've talked about that would look at those types of projects that we could contact? And I'm sure you guys have, but just so that I kind of, for our education, is that something that's being looked at long term?
Yeah, whether it's being looked at where that is, I know the Texas Water Development Board, again, is the one that really would look at those kind of things. There are feasibility studies that would be done to help develop, if you had a regional system, you had a number of cooperating users that you would go to the Water Development Board in terms of looking at a regional plan for that, for connecting those water supplies.
We're currently working on, I guess the state is currently working on, what is it, Ports to Plains? You know, they're really working on that corridor, right, heading that direction, heading west. And so that's something that when they're already working on roads, they could be looking at water supply as well. So it's just something that would, you could, if you're already digging, you could dig once, if you will, and just run it all the way down. I'm not sure, but I think you'll
possibly so.
You know,
something that we look at.
That's not to say that we should look at multiple, maybe two projects, the closest one, but also
Long-term.
a regional, where other counties could participate and contribute as well, and maybe the cost.
I'm talking about the
Ultimately, it's a
RFI.
cost at the end. The dollar that we pay for each gallon of water. So
the thing is, if there's shared risk, it's more palatable, I think, for us as a community, right? So if everybody's invested, then everybody wants it to succeed because that's our future. And it doesn't seem like it now, but I think water availability is going to be what allows prosperity in the future. I think we really are heading that direction. So this is kind of
and it doesn't preclude also Davenport to actually contribute to that.
Absolutely.
It could be
We have one community regional
part of the
pipeline.
regional approach to water supply. Yeah.
We have a lot of excellent groundwater. It's just a matter of conveying it in a regional approach where the costs are shared pro rata based on the amount of water you take is a sound approach. It's been used in many projects.
Yes, Mr. Reyes.
Mayor and Councilman, to answer your question, I know Water Development Board last year requested some proposal for a regional water supply. And I think one of the Dimmitt County or one of those corporations, they did submit it. I think state is looking at it, and that if idea is the state will fund some and the communities, they will fund some. But they didn't select it yet, but we can find out how far state is. But there was the proposal request.
Can we refine this a little bit? Maybe we'll bring an agenda item because I think it has a lot of merit for us to initiate the process to see what's out there.
and to talk to our reps and our senators because that's really where this is going to have to get pushed through that level. I mean, we can try to do our part, but ultimately it's going to be through the governor's office and our state representatives and our state senator. So that's something that I guess when we get to that point where we need to make motions, maybe we try to explore that as a viable solution.
And again, it doesn't prevent anyone else closest to Laredo to actually contribute their water as well and participate, be it the Legacy Ranch or the Davenport or any other source that may be closest to Laredo. It may be an advantage to us because it's closer to us.
And also, Mayor, also maybe working with the county at their meeting to see if they're willing to partner with us on it, since there's a lot of county land outside of Laredo.
Right, absolutely, yeah. Yes, Mr. Garcia?
Yes, Mayor, I know one time we did pass a resolution regarding the groundwater district where we asked for additional pumping of groundwater. That was an action that you've already taken. That's one step we've done as a council that you all...
So will that initiate the investigation to see how best...
That is one step, and there'll be several other steps that we can take in the future.
Okay, but you'll be guiding us, or who will be guiding council?
Well, the consultant and myself, I will bring information to you all.
So you're saying that by the motion and the action we took previously, it's already in motion?
There is motion moving forward.
Okay, so it's a matter of just getting status reports?
Yes, sir.
For this goal here of bringing a regional approach?
The regional approach, the conveyance, we can look at various factors, but one also is the groundwater supply, establishing either a groundwater district here, and also we requested the additional pumping of groundwater from Webb County, for the area of Webb County, and that was a resolution that was presented, and I think that's going to be incorporated in the state plan, and that way the state recognizes that we are moving forward in that direction, and then identify what the state is going to do, and then we can provide comments to that plan.
Okay, so please guide us. Whatever motions that you need from council, bring them to council, and then we'll consider them at a city council meeting or whenever.
Very good.
Okay then.
Yeah, the GMA action allows Legacy and Davenport and any other groundwater within the county to be pumped. GMA, Groundwater Management Agency, it's number 13. They have to have an amount available. You recommended, the city council recommended 50,000 acre feet, so that would certainly meet all the targets that we've got out there. Just give you some background on what we looked at in terms of these various sources for supplemental and emergency water. Had a number of evaluation criteria, looked at them, and in terms of how much can be delivered, those kind of things, and actually came up with again, groundwater being the most not the best, but having the most advantages, if you will, in terms of meeting the two targets, the supplemental and the emergency.
Yeah, let me ask you this along the regional approach. Did you all consider anything from the coast?
Yeah.
Baffin Bay, communities also participating and helping out?
DSAL. No, we didn't look at that. Reports that we
Is it
did
still
look
too
at,
expensive, do you
too
think?
expensive.
Okay. Yes, Mr. City Manager?
I can just answer that very quickly. The desal that Corpus Christi is looking at would be not, the treatment facility would not be large enough for regional supply.
Yeah, how about the Brownsville? Brownsville has a desal plant, but I think it's just for them, I think. Yeah. Okay.
It gets very expensive.
Okay, no, that's fine.
I can look into that more and verify, but I think it'd be too expensive.
Yeah, we would hate to miss out on something that we should have considered. But,
Right.
but it's
I
up to
agree.
you.
I
Okay.
agree. So this is kind of the way I evaluated the different sources, how many days of supply would be available. I looked at that. So there's quantity, cost, the reliability of the supply. How long, would the groundwater be available in those areas? How long would the quality hold up? Those kind of questions. Environmental concerns, water rights can be an issue, property acquisition, and public acceptability was one that the city wanted to make sure that we took a look at on each one of these. So we did. Next slide. And these are the primary water supplies that we looked at. Same graph. We have eliminated, as far as meeting the target. We've eliminated Lake Casablanca, and we looked also at these are Region M reuse projects, very valid, meritorious projects, but they do not supply enough water to meet those targets, the supplemental water or the emergency water. So let's see. So we eliminated those as far as meeting the targets, and then keep coming. They had a clicker. So we looked at the groundwater, and next slide. Now keep moving. There we go.
There we go.
We eliminated Val Verde because it's 150 miles away, but I did it with a shading, with a dashed X, to recognize the potential for a regional development. Okay, that's why I did it that way. That leaves us with Webb County and Dimmitt County as the ones that came out as most favorable of the group that we looked at. Next slide. So here's the kind of the summary statements on Dimmitt County, and if its quantity and quality are confirmed in further tests, further engineering reports, then it's certainly a viable, feasible source of supply. Davenport, again, we've got to have the certified pump test for production and the certified lab test for quality. If those are favorable, then Davenport can have a cost advantage by being closer to Laredo, less conveyance cost. So additional studies got to be done to target whether it's something in Webb County or do we need to go up to Dimmitt County. Okay, that's kind of how that worked out. All right.
Let me ask you a question along those lines. Even if we isolate something in Webb County, it'll still behoove us to compare a regional, correct? Because a regional may, by multiple communities participating, it may be cheaper.
I see what you're saying, and you could have, again, this regional pipeline where you have contributions from different groundwater sources.
So we should consider, isolate and then consider the regional and compare and see which is better. Okay.
Yeah. And there's the potential that you could also mitigate some of the water quality issues at some of the wells, some of the groundwater here in Webb County by blending. Okay. All right.
And again, if this is something that the council wants to go forward with, you may consider requesting interest statements or requests for proposals to get additional folks to come in and maybe propose water. But this is what you currently have before you in both those projects. At least the Dimmitt County groundwater looks very favorable.
Let me ask you this, before we solicit proposals, shouldn't we get a game plan with the state of Texas, the Texas Water Development Board, and see what their thoughts are? Or, how are you guiding us? Is that the next step? Or
I would say the next step, Mayor, I want to investigate further where a regional concept, like we just discussed, is with the Water Development Board. We can structure a RFP or a request for information from groundwater purveyors in these areas. We can go ahead and start working on that, asking the questions, asking for certified, reliable quantity and quality information. So we could go ahead. I don't think that you have to do one and then the other. You can do those in parallel tracks.
okay. Yes, sir.
The time frame of what Val Verde can do for us compared to what Davenport can do for us as far as the length of us having water, is that a big difference? I'm assuming it is. Val Verde has plenty of water.
Right.
And I'm asking about the Davenport one. is that water supply going to last us 10, 20 years? Compared to Valverde, that would last us literally 100 years, you know, with the amount of water. So we certainly don't want to spend, I'm throwing a route figure out, $300 million to connect to Davenport compared to $500 million to a water supply that can last us a lifetime or another lifetime.
Correct.
Have you all checked that? And the quality of the water, I'm assuming, is very different. Valverde is going to be a lot more quality than what it is coming from Davenport.
Potentially, yes. But so again, when you put out these interest statements or these proposals, many of them come with what they call take-or-pay contracts. You set the standard of the water you want, the quality of the water you want. If they can't deliver that, then obviously the city's not obligated to continue in that contract. You've got to have a quality that you set, the quantity you set, and they've got to guarantee it for a certain amount of time. That's all part of the proposals. If you look at the statement, the proposals from Dimmitt and Kinney and Valverde counties, you've seen where they are basically saying, we have this quality, we have this quantity, and we're willing to guarantee it for X amount of time.
And the request for information or the RFP going out to these purveyors will nail that down. You know, they will have to tell us, you know, this is the quantity we have. Here's how long that quantity is anticipated. You know, how much resource do you have? How long will it take to develop the well system and conveyance pipelines and all those types of things? That could be done by the individual purveyors, but you could also work at the same time with looking at this regional approach, because that information would be needed to develop a regional project as well. Okay, I think, next slide. The expert on this one is your assistant city manager, but this is, he's shaking his head, but I know he is. But this is a very doable project. It's a Laredo reuse project that certainly ought to be looked at. In the regional plan, it was put out into the year 2040, so there could be consideration of moving that forward if there's the capital investment and other issues. But this is one that we have looked at. Next slide. Emergency water supply. Again, this is, and you want to talk on this one?
Yeah, again, when we looked at, part of the task was looking at not just supplemental, what do you do 2040 and beyond, knowing that we have 55 million gallons of water rights today that could last us. If you did nothing else, no more water rights, you didn't search for groundwater, you know you have water till 2042 more or less. But beyond that, you're going to need an additional 22,000 acre-feet of water. But you also have to consider what happens if you have a spill on the Rio Grande or some other interruption. Not sure what that could be, but there are things that could happen. And the length of those, how long would those last? Historically, you've never had an interruption. You've never had that kind of contamination. The Rio Grande, in spite of all its issues that it's had with treaties from Mexico, overuse, over-allocation, you've never had it run dry. You've always had the ability to pump water out. But you do have to look at that. So currently, the city of Laredo, again, looking back at the slide we had a few slides back where you were talking about 33 million gallons a day as an emergency. You're good. We don't need to go back. I'm sorry. We do know at this moment you have 25 million gallons of ground storage tanks, 16.5 million gallons of elevated storage tanks, and currently proposed in CIP, either ongoing or proposed, you have another 14.5 million gallons of total storage capacity. That'll bring you to 56 million gallons total storage capacity. So if you had to shut off your production, and this is all you had, you could store up to 56 million gallons relatively soon. Right now, today, about 44 million gallons.
And that would last 2 days?
About 2 days. And again, the big challenge, you say, and the city manager and I had a discussion earlier, is there any way to shut off the water and just allocate a ration that is possible? I mean, we've seen that already with the freeze, people running into the HEBs, taking all the toilet paper, taking all the hand sanitizer, taking everything they've got. You would have the same kind of a run on gasoline, you would have that on water as well.
So before we get to this point, should we be thinking about reusing, the effluent? converting it?
That's one project that you all have. It's in your CIP, or it's in the proposed CIP. It is something that Region M has in their plan. It's something your assistant city manager has worked on. You have a very large plant in South Laredo that has a capability of treating. You're going to have more wastewater going to it, so you may have a supply. Again, how do you treat that, get it back into circulation at some point? There's a cost for that.
Would that be more cost effective than pursuing, these other emergency sources?
Potentially. Again, you look at Davenport.
The first phase of the reuse.
If you look at Davenport or Legacy or one of these smaller projects, potentially they could give you an emergency supply.
Okay.
As they develop, there's an industrial development that's going north of town. They've got their own water supply. Is there a possibility you might be able to get water from them in an emergency? Rio Bravo has a water plant. Again, if it's not affected for whatever reason, there's a possibility you could make some tie-in to get water. But
the reuse would only be 3 million gallons.
Yeah, but the reuse itself, exactly. The reuse itself, and one of the reasons why it's pushed out so far out is that right now it's only 3 million gallons.
Okay.
So in terms of an emergency source, it doesn't fulfill the need. So when we looked at it, that's why it fell so far down in our rankings, because it just doesn't have the quantity you need.
Okay, thank you.
But again, you're looking at this. Next slide, please. You could add additional storage. That is something that you currently are doing already. That's part of your strategy. You could, by adding additional storage, you have a footprint at Mary Helper Christian. You could build another tank there. You've got other places. You just bought some property that you're going to be building some storage tanks there. You would have some capacity or some space to build there as well. The benefits of adding additional storage, you increase your emergency supply, you improve your water distribution, regulatory compliance, enhanced reliability, and obviously you're going to need it for the future. So this is one particular place where you may look at and say, in an emergency, we might be able to do this.
I'm curious, in an emergency, and you don't have the Jefferson and the Pico supplying water, but we do have storage, do we have the capability to reverse the water flow from the storage up north, let's say, rather than the regular flow going south? If you've got storage tanks here and more water is being used over here, but
could you redirect some of the?
Can you redirect that water that's on storage?
I'm going to let your utilities director answer that, but before I.
For the record, just so Arturo Garcia, utilities director. What you're thinking in concept, we've been able to do at times where we isolate different areas of the town and we redirect flows to different sections. That is something now that we're looking at with some of the new projects that we're constructing, to be able to do that and utilize that storage capacity to be able to feed and keep the system charged. Because that's my goal, is to keep the system charged.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, and more to the councilman's point, you are already looking at a project that's in your CIP. It's one of the ones that is a priority project that you took action on the other night. That is that 24-inch line coming from the airport to Bartlett down into your storage facilities. You could eventually, when you have capacity, because right now you're only producing 20 million gallons at El Pico. It does not have the capacity to supply any more than that.
Yeah, let's clarify that. That 24-inch line, I thought it was coming from El Pico, but it's not.
No, it's currently coming from Mary Helper Christians.
So really there's no communication from El Pico to the Jefferson service area, correct? I mean, they're separated?
They're isolated right now, but that connection can be made by using bypasses.
Yeah, but we don't have any.
Not right now.
Okay.
Right now, we've got them isolated because we've got two separate pressure planes, El Pico and Jefferson.
Okay, thank you.
But again, future project, that could assist you as well.
We need to.
For redundancy and reliability, and when we talk about those issues, that's basically what you're talking about. You have two plants, you've got to do the very best you can with those.
Either way.
Understanding that you have at Jefferson a lot of capacity, and at the moment, not a real good way to get it out, and those are some of the CIPs that you're going to be looking at, some of those projects that we're recommending to get that excess capacity, stranded capacity, what do you want to call it, out of that plant when you need it. Okay? So, okay, before we go into this next part of the presentation, this is where we're going to talk about CIP. I think it was important for us to bring our team member from on to improve your water quality at the plant, water quality at the tanks, and water quality coming into your homes. Arturo's been taking care of that. So I'm going to give him my mic and just kind of move sideways for him.
Thank you very much, Gene.
Let's go.
Yeah, maybe.
You're right.
The clip is too tight.
Thank you. Can y'all hear me? Yes, sir. All right, so good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. I'm here to present an update on the water quality assessment and optimization project. Heard y'all loud and clear a couple workshops ago. You wanted to know what we were doing in terms of our reports, our technical memorandums, but also if you want to go ahead and on the next slide. So first off, I want to go over the objective, what we were hired for back in July 26, 2021, came before council. We were hired to improve and stabilize the water quality in the City of Laredo utility system by taking on a source-to-tap strategy with the ultimate goal to attain a superior water rating with TCEQ. The team for this project, and I put here the City of Laredo Utilities Department, they're really leading the efforts. We're providing the recommendations, and we're providing, again, the consultant support. But without their efforts and their dedication, the water quality wouldn't be where it's at right now. So I want to give kudos to city administration, to the Utilities Department administration, the water treatment folks, and the water distribution folks. They've been working around the clock ever since we were let go again on July 26th. To make sure that we have improved water quality here in the City of Laredo. And then the consulting team, Ardura Group Inc. and Hazen and Sawyer. This is a partnership that Mr. Selman had the opportunity to work with us in the city of Corpus Christi. And he has a chance to work with us again. So I don't even want to go next slide. So again, it really resonated in terms of what we've done to date. We've produced 8 technical memorandums. There's a 3-inch binder over there if we need to go into detail on that. But more importantly, in those tech memos, there have been operational improvements aimed at improving the water quality immediately in the city's distribution, in the city's water system. We've also updated the nitrification action plan. We've submitted that to the state. It's been approved. That's what we're following right now. We've provided staff augmentation and support, TCQ coordination assistance, and communication and outreach as needed. And again, I think it was brought up a couple of workshops ago. You guys wanted to know operationally, what have we done through our efforts that has improved the water quality here in the city, right? So you want to go ahead and click the next slide. So operational improvements, I want to spend a little bit of time on that. First and foremost, right off the gate, we adjusted the chemical feed targets at the water treatment plants to ensure we're producing a stable disinfectant at the water treatment plants and carry that disinfectant through the distribution system. We increased the amount of sampling and monitoring at the water treatment plants and out in the distribution system to make sure that we're constantly hitting those targets. Every day we're hitting those targets, all eyes are on, all hands are decked, so we're making sure that we're, again, producing a stable disinfectant in the system. Based on that sampling that we're doing and monitoring that we're doing, again, at the water treatment plants and the distribution system, we're making operational adjustments, whether it be needed every hour, every 2 hours, just based on the samples that we're taking every day. So this mainly right here, and this initial steps, has been manual labor. It's all been done by our operators. Again, it's very, very intensive, but we're working with the city's utilities department, and we're actually implementing and we're rolling out on some sites automatic sampling and analyzers to make sure that we have some efficiency in the way we do things, right, and be able to monitor the system better. So again, all of that is aimed towards providing increased process control to create a stable disinfectant. Yes, sir.
So what about?
A little closer to.
So I can see this in particular, what you've been doing, but what about optimization of the people, right? So protocols.
Yes, and that's exactly what you're seeing right here. That is, again, in the tech memos, those are the SOPs and protocols that we've been implementing with the utilities department. Here, right here, we're going over the sampling and monitoring plan that we
But you're saying
implemented.
these are increased to create a stable disinfectant to prevent, boil water notices
Nitrification.
from nitrification.
Yes, sir.
But I'm talking about looking at the protocols or the procedures in place to ensure the delivery of the water.
I think that is something that the LAN team is ready to provide more insight on. They've been working on the water modeling side. Address that, redundancy and resiliency that you're looking for in your distribution system.
So this is.
Yes, this is separate.
I understand.
So this is primarily on the production side?
This is, yes, well, it's at the water plant and in the distribution system. Again, we're taking the water from the river, we're disinfecting it at our water treatment plants. We've got to make sure that the disinfectant is stable enough and carry that disinfectant.
But you don't worry about the operational, the valves?
That is separate.
Okay, so it's just the liquid, the water itself,
the water quality of it, yes.
Okay.
And some processes, again, on
Yes.
treatment of the water and making all the notifications. Again, I don't have my microphone.
Yeah.
Again.
So yes, and I'll go through that, and I think the next few slides are going to touch on that. But just to answer just your question, whatever we're putting on those tech memos, we're then sitting down with plant staff and distribution system staff, and we're going over what we want to implement. We walk through them, we visit the sites, we sample with them, and then we implement it, and then they take off with it. So we've been, again, working. It's a dynamic process. I don't know if you want to go to the next slide. So here's a snapshot of the old process control. Here's a distribution site chlorine residual form that the operators used. They go out into the distribution sites, collect their samples, and not only at distribution sites, but also at the water treatment plants. They recorded the data. Then they proceeded at the end of the day to input it into an Excel spreadsheet. And it was minimal amount of eyes looking at this, at the water quality, right? So now what we're doing at the water treatment plant to ensure we have good process control, right? So this, what you're seeing here is a screenshot of a dashboard we've implemented as part of the SOPs again, where what you're looking at here is a screenshot from September 3rd through March 28th of the water leaving El Pico water treatment plant. So we are constantly monitoring the water quality leaving the plant, and we've set targets for the operators and utilities administration, city management. We have access to this, consultants, water treatment staff, water distribution staff, and they're all looking to make sure that we're producing good quality water at the plants. And if you see here the progression and the work that again, nothing would be possible without the operators putting great efforts yeah, so once we fall below the targets, we take actions. That's a nitrification action plan, because that's not only out in the distribution system, but we also have it at the water treatment plants. So, and we also monitor free ammonia and free chlorine whenever we're on free chlorine conversion and other parameters. So,
when we fall short, TCEQ is not involved, correct? You're trying to avoid a TCEQ.
Yes, and that's why we implemented a nitrification action plan. We updated that and we're carrying it out. We have trigger levels that we hit, and we make sure that we act before, or not, I talk a lot in wheeze, I'm sorry, but the utilities department staff takes action before we hit.
TCEQ gets involved. Okay, wonderful, thank you.
I don't know if we want to go to the next slide. So now we're making sure that we're producing a stable disinfectant through the water treatment plants. We're taking it out into the distribution system. And again, this is a dashboard, and you're looking at all the sites that are monitored daily just for process control. This is different, and I know it's been a question, but there's sites that we report to the state, but these are specifically for process control, and we make sure that we're hitting the targets daily. And you'll see here, there was actually, on March 10th, there was a residual yellow flag. So that prompted action from the treatment crews and the distribution crews to go out there and flush and make sure that we restabilized that part of the city, the water system. And here, again, everybody has access to that. The nitrification action plan is here. Here are thresholds. And if we're not hitting it, either, again, there's 20 eyes on this at any given time.
Part of the water quality is flushing, correct? I mean, we flush a lot.
Yes, and if you want to go back a slide, and I can touch on, but yes, and we're able to, with this tool, we're able to pinpoint what areas of concern we have right now.
Proactively.
And that prompts action, again, water treatment plant staff, if contacts water distribution, and there's both administrative and field responses, right? So
when people see hydrants, fire hydrants, with water being flushed, it's part of this.
Yes, it's part of the efforts. Yes,
sir. Water quality. Okay, thank you.
And that, I'm just curious, procedurally, I know it's kind of a silly question, but can you, when you're flushing, can you put it into a tanker and go drop it off to a pond somewhere so you don't just flush it?
Yeah.
I'm serious, I'm asking.
No.
I mean, because I know there's golf courses and lakes that need the water. I know it's silly, but I don't know, is that something that's...
There's a cost.
Yeah.
Always, there's a cost. I mean, that, again, transportation cost for that. And, right now, depending on where you're flushing and how much is being flushed, would it make sense to take a tanker?
Do we even have a tanker truck?
Yes, we do have a tanker truck.
So we can capture it and send it, for instance, to the lake. We need water at the lake.
That's something we can consider. We can look at a program for capturing some of this water, but because we are flushing quite a bit.
Well, we had talked about getting a registry for people to sign up so that if they wanted to be flush, like if they wanted to be part of the protocol, they would flush them to their yards for irrigation. We made that as a motion. We also made it as a motion to look at creative ways of using this water that we're flushing, because we're really just flushing it out. So anyways.
Come budget time, I'm asking
and
for...
believe me, the goal is to minimize the amount of flushing, and as we move to our efforts, again, it's kind of, we're piggybacking on the hydraulic monitoring team, but we're working together to make sure, again, water quality is great, and we minimize the amount of flushing that we're doing through pinpointing,
To minimize or even reduce as much as possible the flushing, it will require the replacement of these new lines, right? A new line will help minimize flushing?
Not exactly.
So flushing is a necessity as part of doing business?
It's not, it's a necessity right now for us, for the system, yes, because of the amount of dead ends. Yes.
When will it not be a necessity?
Again, we're working towards minimizing the amount of flushing right now. I'm not prepared to give you a date.
No. But what will minimize flushing? What process?
The water quality. Once we have a stable disinfectant in the system, and our consumption, what we're producing and our consumption is almost the same, because we need people to use the water, right? And if the water's not used, it stays stagnant in our tanks, right? So again, it's kind of a balancing act, and we're working to
So new lines will not help?
New lines do not help in terms of not flushing.
So we're talking about, with the previous presentation, we were talking about storage of water for emergency purposes. So now we're going to have stagnant water in the tank.
And that's we're also at the tanks, we're adding active mixing systems and residual management systems to ensure that the water quality in your tanks, even if it's there sitting, it's still has a stable disinfectant. So that's being taken care of.
Mr. Mayor, but just to answer your question about new lines, because I think there's maybe some misconception or miscommunication on that. The new lines, where we're talking about looping, adding looping lines to the system.
Replacing the 36 and the 24 in all the old infrastructure, by replacing the old infrastructure, is that going to minimize flushing? I thought that the older the line, it creates that sarro, we call it in Spanish, and it adds to that nitrification and so on.
It could pose a threat in terms of when you have low water pressure, which is why you precautionary issue boil water notices when you fall below that threshold.
Yeah, and so I think one of the keys here is that this system was in place when the last boil water notice happened, right? I mean, so we had good quality water that was getting spilled. I mean, basically, right? So the tanks.
Yeah, we never suffered a water quality through that.
It wasn't a water quality issue that we faced, right? And so
Triggered by pressure.
It was a pressure issue. And so, I mean, this is great that we're getting great quality, but when we're looking at this overall good quality system, it's a system-wide process, right? And so, although we're looking at the quality, I think it's important to note that what we suffered last time was a catastrophic failure of process. At least that's something that we're going to look at. And I know it's separate, but ultimately, I think we have to be clear here that this system is not going to prevent boil water notices in and of itself. It's going to prevent water boil notices from this particular nitrification issue. And so this was in place, and it didn't save us last time. And so I know that it's important, but I do want the public to know that there are multiple things that can result in a water boil notice.
I have a slide that touches on that, and I think it's going to support exactly what you're saying. It's going to put things in perspective. If that's okay.
Okay. Yeah,
I can present that. Yeah. So, real quick, I'm gonna wrap it up, and I'm gonna touch on exactly what you wanted to hear, Doctor, Council Member. I don't know if you want to go to this next slide. Items in progress. We're continuing to work towards, again, achieving that superior water system. Our job is not done. We're continuing to improve our SOPs as we go through this. We're about to wrap up 4 technical memorandums. We have a couple of projects in design. We're continuing to provide that staff augmentation support, continuing to improve operationally, and we continue to provide TCQ coordination and communication and outreach. And I don't know if you want to, real quick, it was a question slide, but if you want to go to the next one. Next one. Boil water notices since 2016, and I think there's been 13,428 through mid-August boil water notices that were issued in the state of Texas. In 2021 alone, January 2021 through mid-August of 2021, when this was pulled from public information requests, there was 45 water quality boil water notices. There was 67 due to water outages and availability, water well failures, and so on and so forth. There was 2,430 related to Winter Storm Uri, and 1,083 due to low water pressure. That could be line breaks, valve replacements, you hit a fire hydrant, you knock out a section of the city, pump failures, electrical issues. So that, again, it's loaded. It doesn't protect us, our water quality doesn't protect us, but yeah, so there's multiple things that could cause a boil water notice.
And it is the lowest threshold that
and it's
triggers
precautionary again. It's very precautionary to make sure that it's state mandated so that we
there is a do not drink
our
notice, and then there is a do not use notice. Those go further up the line, and all this invariably under water quality issues.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you.
When do you anticipate this plan finalizing?
If you go back a few slides right there, you saw this graphic in slightly different colors. We had immediate action, 0 to 90 days. We're done with that. We're in the 4 to 6 month / 1 to 2 year. We're kind of in the middle. We're transitioning. We're finishing up our supplemental studies, and we're implementing the long-term vision, the long-term
Didn't this
design.
start in June of 21?
July 26th, we were hired, and we were here the next day at your water treatment plants.
Carry the
That's
one.
correct.
We should be
7
at
months.
9 months on. Yeah, okay, got it.
7 months.
Okay, all right.
7 months, right?
July.
Yeah, March. 8. No, it's not 8 months.
So as we replace.
So we're going to
middle. We meet in the middle. But so to achieve, our goal is to achieve a superior water system rating here at the city, right? And for that, on top of the work that we're doing, we got to resolve our existing violations. We have agreed orders dating back to 2019 and 2020, so we're also taking care of those. We cannot apply to be a superior water system with TCQ without resolving those issues first. And we are working not only on the water quality, but we're suffering from other stuff that it wasn't related to water quality. So we again need to address those continuously, and the target is to finish this within a year to 2 years. So this was presented early on. So,
Corpus?
Mr. Selman, that was a 2-year turnaround approximately. And it was a capital investment, and again, it was without staff, it wouldn't have been possible. I mean, again, you went through that. It was 4 boil water notices back to back to back to back.
Right.
So, yes,
Okay, so we're going to talk about cost?
those are the guys.
That's us. We're going to talk about,
There you go.
but before we do that, Mr. Mayor, it's probably a good time for us to take a break so you guys can have some dinner, let us reset the presentation, and then we'll kind of bring Noe Hinojosa up here and let him, let you beat up my hand a little bit. We're just kidding. No.
Yes, a motion to recess for about 10 minutes?
Whatever it takes, they have dinner for you all as well, so if that'll give you enough time.
Thank you. This motion,
Maybe
a
15
second
minutes?
discussion. None heard, those in favor say aye. Any opposed, none heard, motion carries. Thank you.
It's not a steak dinner. It is not.
Can I have your attention, please? Yeah, we're about to begin. Give us 30 seconds so we can get in our places.
Motion to adjourn.
What are friends for?
You're making a lot of assumptions there, right?
All right, 5 minutes. So basically,
Okay, hold on. I think we took a break. We're back in open session, so please go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, we're going to reserve the CIP portion of it for Monday's city council meeting because of a question of time. But we do want to talk about the financing that's available for the new CIP, and so Noe Hinojosa from Hinojosa Estrada is here with us to give you that part of it. So,
Mr. Hinojosa, welcome, sir.
thank you. I feel the warmth. Thank you, sir. I think, if anything, Noe Hinojosa with the Estrada Hinojosa and Company, and basically you've been talking about utilities, and just think about having a $530 million business. That's what you have. It's a $530 million business. That $400 million of that is debt. So net, it's a $130 million business you got. But that business is generating revenues of about $90 million a year between water and sewer. And that's split 55-45%. 55% is water, 45% is sewer. So the CIP that was brought to me on a very informal basis is about $330 million for the next 5 years, just for water. So today, that $90 million business, annual income, pays or leaves you with about $45 million in what we consider, what you could call profits. But then you have to pay your mortgages. And that $45 million pays about $34 million of mortgages. Currently. And that's where it's at. So if you do nothing between now and the next 30 years, your payment is $34 million or even less. But you have to do something. And that's what utilities are requiring you to do. So whenever you go to the market, or whenever you go borrow money from a state bank, that's going to add payments to the 34. So the 45 that is being generated right now is a function of your rate increases on both water, sewer, the fact that you have a wet year, the fact that other issues come into play allows you to generate those net revenues. So if they tell me we need $330 million for water improvements, we can pretty much categorically tell you that you probably can afford only 2/3 of that CIP, the 330, with the current revenues, with the current rate structure increases or rate increases you have contemplated.
Can you repeat that, please?
About 2/3 of the 330, maybe you find it about $200 million, between $180 and $200 million. And I'm counting on the Texas Water Development Board to come and help us out. The thing about the Water Development Board that hasn't been said to you, there's a long process, a lengthy process to getting qualified. First, you got to get all your needs to qualify for this water master plan. Once it's in the water master plan, then the Water Development Board discloses where you can get those funds from, and some of them are going to be on an interest rate basis. They're willing to subsidize the interest rate, but today's problem for you, in my opinion, are three things. One of them has nothing to do with finance. One of them has to do with the fact that you have to do something about your needs. The second problem you got is that inflation is biting us all. The supply chain is becoming a big issue for all of us out there. And then the third thing that you probably have seen most recently, there's an expectation for the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates 6 or 7 times this year. They just raised it last week 0.25%, and literally the municipal bonds, who normally chase U.S. Treasuries, have dropped actually more than U.S. Treasuries. If you read Bloomberg today, announced that if you had a bond that you bought on January the 1st, in 1 quarter it dropped 6%. In other words, if you had $1,000, it's worth 6% less than $1,000. And our whole issue is As the value drops, interest rates rise. So the things you have to do and take into account when you go to the Water Development Board, and that's something that we've done in the past at the city, when we get 0% loans, or when we get big grants, we go to them because they can be more attractive than the open markets. But the open markets get you to have access pretty quickly. So you have to balance that act, because you do want to get the assistance from the Water Development Board. The second thing you want is you want to get the funds to come here when you actually really need them. And one thing is telling you, oh, you can spend all this $300 million, but if you don't have the adequate staff or consultant engineers or whatever, you may not ever get those projects done. So we have to do the balancing act of how much can we borrow. You know, even though you need $330 million, you don't borrow the $330 all at once. But I think if you recognize that you have $330 million in revenue in needs, then maybe you determine to borrow a third this year in 22, a third in 24, and a third in 26. And you just go at it year after year. I'm sorry?
As needed.
As needed, exactly. But keeping in mind that you do have applications before the Water Development Board, and if the Water Development Board is willing to step in next year and give us grant, and give us maybe some 0% loans, or some interest rate subsidized loans, we'll go there in 23. So those are the things that we thought. Right now, we think that if rates remain the same, you should be able to get the 2/3 I told you, $200 million. Well, you wouldn't borrow $200 million today, but I think somewhere between $70, $80 million to $120 million, it will be a good play to hedge against potentially rates continuing to rise between now and next year. And, you know, literally nobody knows what's going to happen out there in terms of interest rates, but I'm sitting on cash right now. The utility system is sitting on cash. The utility system has cash on hand. They have a savings account. And that's very good in case things get out of line on the expense side for operations, or for that matter, as you embark on doing capital improvements, some of these projects may not come in within budget. Well, there's some cash there for that rainy day, right? So that's all I had to say. Keith, I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit more.
Thank you, Noe. Thank you,
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to thank Noe for his presentation. I think that it's important that we have the entire council present for any numbers discussion or any recommendations management might have for us. So I'd like to make a motion to instruct the city manager to incorporate as part of Monday's agenda, maybe through a supplemental agenda, an item to continue the financial part of this discussion, if any, for any possible action that staff may ask us to take, and that we discuss that hopefully with more members of the council present.
Second that motion.
Okay, this is a motion, a second discussion. None heard, none seen. Call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard, none seen. Motion carries. Thank
Motion
you.
to adjourn.
Motion and a second to adjourn discussion. None heard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None seen, none heard. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.